Hola a todo el mundo y bienvenido a mi canal. Yo me llamo Sirey. Soy una abogada afro-latina licenciada practicando la ley criminal, pero como todos ustedes, a mí me fascina cuando estamos hablando de casos de crímenes reales. En este video vamos a continuar nuestra conversación de Afeni Badu Mohammed. Si quieres más video en español, nada más dime allá abajo. Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Desiree. I'm a licensed and practicing Afro-Latina criminal attorney who, much like the rest of you, has a severe fascination with true crime cases. Listen, you guys, maybe like a week or so ago, probably 2 weeks at this point, we discussed the case of Afeni Badu Mohammed. That was our second video on the case because I did a video like right when things occurred to let you guys know everything that happened in that case. Where we left off last, Afeni Badu Mohammed's attorneys raised competency, but she was found competent to proceed. The findings were not challenged, and the court reset for a preliminary hearing. Without further ado, that preliminary hearing actually occurred, and it occurred probably like 2 days ago now. So let's get into it. Let's continue our discussion into the case of Afeni Badu Mohammed. I know I sound like a broken record, but I repeat myself because I want it to be ingratiated in your beautiful little minds. I don't want you guys to have to go back and refresh yourselves with other videos when we are talking about the current, unless it's about the entire facts of the case, because I'm not going to keep reiterating all the facts of the case and all the specifics, right? But anyways, a preliminary hearing is a hearing that is used to determine whether or not probable cause exists as to the charges brought forth by the prosecution. So Afeni was set for prelim here, and let me remind you of the charges that the prosecution have to prove that there are probable cause for. Afeni was charged with first-degree intentional murder because she obviously, allegedly, stabbed her former manager to her death. And she was also charged with a weapons possession charge. I know we talked about it in our last video, but basically the news has been reporting that Afeni was also charged with habitual offender, and I think I want to make that clarification clear to you guys like I did in the last video. She didn't get charged with habitual offender. She got charged as a habitual offender because habitual offender is not a separate charge. Instead, it's a sentencing enhancement, right? Now, the habitual offender statute in this case is only going to be used to enhance the sentence as to the weapons possession charge. Why? Because murder, first degree intentional murder, it's already life. It's already life. So what is there to enhance? Instead, as to the weapons possession charges, oops, that was a tongue twister. As to the weapons possession charge, it will increase her range or her exposure to incarceration. Does that make sense? Okay, let's get started. Now, as far as the burden in a preliminary hearing, as far as all burdens in criminal cases, I would say that this one's pretty low, one of the lowest, honestly. So the court really just has to find that in viewing the light most favorable to the prosecution, there has been enough evidence presented in order to find that a reasonable mind would assume that Ms. Badu Mohammed would be guilty or could be guilty of those charges. Does that make sense? Put a different way. The court has to find that at this preliminary hearing, the prosecution has presented sufficient evidence that it's more reasonable than not, or more likely than not, that Afeni is the person who had committed these charges. So it's not beyond a reasonable doubt, as is the burden if you're going to a jury trial. So it's not that. So I just want to clarify that for you guys, because as we go into this, I want you to think about that. I like to do player discussions. And what I mean by that is that if the information is available, I like to talk to you guys about who the players are in the case, right? Meaning, who's the prosecutor? Who's the judge? Who's the this? Who's the that? Do they have a reputation? And by reputation, I mean like an honorable one, despite the fact that we talk about a lot of different players that might not be so honorable. I'm not talking about that in this case. The judge in Afeni's case is Judge Kathleen G. Galen. So I was able to determine that Judge Galen is actually the chief judge. And what that merely means is that she's the head judge in charge in that jurisdiction and for that specific type of court. Okay, so the preliminary hearing started by the court stating that it was in receipt of the medical examiner's report and asking the prosecution if it had any additional witnesses or if it had another witness to present.
Very good. You may be seated. We left off with the medical examiner's report that was tendered to the court. My understanding is we have one more witness. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
All right, you may call your witness.
That led me immediately to assume that there was another portion of this hearing that wasn't broadcasted, so we didn't get to see it. Because if they were just presenting one witness or this was their first witness, the term next or the term another, however it was phrased, wouldn't have been used. After the court made that statement, the prosecution advised the court that it in fact did have an additional witness to present. And that witness was Detective Lieutenant or Lieutenant Detective, something of the sort, Alex Holish.
People call Lieutenant Alex Holish, who was just here.
As the prosecution was securing its witness, one of the prosecutors in the case made a record to the court, advising the court of all parties that were present in the courtroom.
While we're waiting on that, Judge, as far as I see, the only people that are in the gallery and are people from the media, our victim advocate in the courtroom, myself and Mr. Urban, the public defender's office, and some camera from media. And of course, your staff.
Thank you.
Defense will attest to that as well, Your Honor.
Well, you guys might be thinking to yourselves, Desiree, why on earth would the prosecutor have to make such a record? I know we've talked about it in another video of mine, but I can't tell you exactly what video it is. So let's just go through it again. Typically, in a hearing of this nature, what goes into effect is called a sequestration order. A sequestration order merely means that if there are multiple witnesses that will be testifying at a specific hearing, neither of those witnesses can be present during the testimony of the other. Does that make sense? So if I'm called to testify in a case, and then let's assume you're called to also testify in the same case, you cannot sit in the courtroom as I am testifying and vice versa. And that is so. Each witness's testimony is their own. It's based on their pure memory of what happened here. It's not influenced by anybody else. And that's what typically happens in a hearing like this. So the prosecution making such a record was just to advise the court, we're in compliance with the court's order. And that's that. It's typical, it's standard, it happens. Let's carry on. Wait. One thing that I forgot to mention about sequestration orders, because you guys might be asking yourselves, well, Desiree, if the courtroom is open to the public, then how can a sequestration order be put in place? And that is a phenomenal question. So let's assume again, you and I are testifying in a hearing. If I have finished my testimony and you are coming after me, if all parties agree to release me from my subpoena, I can now sit and observe you testify. Does that make sense? So it's basically just so it doesn't impact the testimony directly. Let's carry on. So Lieutenant Holish gets on the stand and he testifies that he's been a law enforcement officer for 18 years. He also testified that he was one of the officers who was interviewing Afeni Badu Muhammad on the date of incident. It is important to note that prior to commencement of the interview, Lieutenant Holish, as well as the other officer that was with him, provided Afeni Badu Muhammad with a written advisement of her Miranda rights.
Before interacting with her as far as talking about things, was there anything that you did first?
I observed dry blood on her hands, and I asked her if I could collect it. Detective May read Ms. Muhammad her rights, as far as the right for us, if she would waive her search rights, because technically it's a search. She agreed. She signed the form. I used the distilled water and the cotton swabs to collect dry blood from each of her hands.
And as far as her rights that were given to her by Detective May, were you there at the time that occurred?
I was.
May I approach, Your Honor?
You may.
Sure. Yes. Approaching with people's proposed exhibit, I believe is 6.
That's constitutional rights, sir.
Yes.
First, she was giving the forum rights to search. That's what we talked about, not this right.
Correct, but those,
That's eventually Detective May did give constitutional rights to Afeni as well. But I'm talking about to collect the blood. It was a consent to search form.
I understand. And as far as the form here, when did this take place?
Right after I collected blood, the dry blood, what appeared to be dry blood, Detective May read Ms. Mohammed her constitutional rights directly from the form. She initialed next to each right. She signed the form. I see my signature on it, and I see Detective May's signature, recognize his signature on it as well.
Is it dated?
Yeah.
What's it?
It's 7/10/25. At this point, it's 8:56 a.m.
Does that accurately reflect the document that, with the constitutional rights that she was given by you and Detective May, and which everyone signed?
That's right. It's a copy of it, actually, but yes.
You guys might ask yourselves, Desiree, why is it that in certain circumstances the advisement is orally read and in other circumstances it is written? I think that's also a great question. But long story short, the answer is in certain situations you can just read it. Like, let's assume someone's getting arrested for shoplifting at Target, right? The officer will probably just read it from the back of a card that they have pre-printed out to the person who's accused of shoplifting and get their verbal acknowledgement that they're willing to waive their rights and speak to the officer, which will typically also be captured on their body-worn camera. In other situations where it's more serious, like alleged murder, they will take the person who is accused down to the station, set them up in a stationary room where there are cameras and everything, and then get a written advisement because it's just cleaner that way. I wouldn't say either one is more effective, I guess, necessarily. A waiver is a waiver, but I think in cases of more seriousness, more severity, it is more common that the waiver is done in writing. But let's carry on. So after acknowledging the fact that he was one of the officers who was present for the interview with Afeni Badu Mohammed, they then asked a few more foundational questions before they played the interview in open court. I know we've talked about foundational questions before, but let me just explain it once again. Basically, you have to ask specific questions in a specific way in order to introduce specific pieces of evidence, right? As far as an interview tape is concerned, you either need to be a person with direct knowledge or someone who's in the tape, basically, like simplifying it for you. Someone with direct knowledge or someone that's in the tape. What's the difference between someone with direct knowledge and someone who's in the tape? So like if I'm being interviewed, I can attest that I was there and I was interviewed because you'll see me in that footage, right? But someone with direct knowledge might be the person who has installed the tape system in the interview room and knows how it functions, knows how it works, knows how it whatever. So those are two different avenues with which to get the tape in. It's always easier to just get someone who's there so you can just introduce it that way. But in certain circumstances, let's say that person's not available. Like let's say it's a law enforcement officer who has passed away. Or let's say, obviously, you're a prosecutor. You're not going to get the defendant to get up there and introduce your evidence to incriminate themselves, right? So you can go about it in two different ways. But let's carry on. So in the interview itself, after it was played at open court, Afeni not only admitted to stabbing Jennifer multiple times, she also showed law enforcement how she did it.
How many knives did you have on you? Can you describe the knife that you stabbed her with? Well, explain what a knife is.
It's that knife like this.
Is it long? Okay. Did you walk up behind her? Did you read it? And you just walked up to her. Tell me how you did it. You walked up to her and you just started doing what? How you did it. You can stand up. You just okay.
I'm just, I'm done for the. Okay, so I headed out with my church.
Wow.
Like I headed out with my church.
Is that the one I got? And then so I'm Jennifer, and you have the knife in your hand, I need you to close, where did you do it like this? There's something,
Right there.
you start a little bit,
Yeah.
okay, do it where I'm not talking. It's okay, don't where, it's okay.
It must be turned around and then she's all in it.
You get up, did you stab her in the stomach?
I don't know, I don't know.
So, you mentioned somebody, you heard a gunshot.
I'm trying to say, hey, yeah, sorry, I mean, but, you know, I actually got this guy, he's trying to go, and I hear about this, like, I get behind, but this is very right, you know, talking about it, it was right towards, you know, coming back and out, and around, yeah, that's why I need to turn around, and then I was like, the she's going to turn around, and then turn around.
So the blood in your hand, it was.
I can't find exactly what I took it off.
You think it's okay?
Yeah, and you go, because I didn't get shot.
After introduction of the tape, the prosecutors really didn't have many more questions for Lieutenant Holish, and the defense attorneys were given an opportunity to cross-examine them should they choose. Their response might be of interest to some of you.
Cross-examination.
Just one moment, Judge. No, I have no further question. I have no questions, Judge.
So as you guys just saw, the defense attorneys passed up on their opportunity to cross-examine this specific witness. Do I think that that was smart? I mean, I guess so. I think that was a good strategic move on behalf of the defense team. Why? Because what you gonna say? It's on tape. Like, what questions can you ask this man? It is on tape. It is on tape. So after the defense attorneys passed on their opportunity to cross-examine this witness, both sides gave their arguments as to why they felt like probable cause was either established or not established.
Additionally, we know that she brought that knife there with the specific intent to stab and kill Jennifer Harris because that's what she told police. And she explained using Detective May as a prop is that where she was stabbing was intentionally in the neck area and the upper chest. So based on everything you've seen today and what you've heard and the defendant's own explanation, I just ask that you bind over counts 1 and counts 2.
I think what was effective in the prosecution's argument was the fact that they pointed out that Afeni demonstrated, not only did she admit to doing it, she demonstrated for law enforcement. I think that was an effective way to get to the point. She not only told us she did it, she showed us how she did it. Judge, there's PC for these charges. Bind this on up.
Obviously, people are objecting to bind over. One, I guess I
You
want to.
mean defense is objecting to bind over?
What did I say?
You said people are
Oh,
objecting
yeah.
to bind over.
Offenses, I'm sorry. And where I was going really, Your Honor, is where the insinuation of in her statements of and how the people are identifying this insinuation that she bought the knife for this. And I hope it's clear to the court that based on her own statement, which the court, I believe, is relying, I know the people are relying on her own statement in part to satisfy the bind over, that she indicated that she bought it previously for something different. Now, I'm not saying that there can't be an insinuation from that, but I don't want the court, nor do I want the facts to be insinuated that it was bought for this purpose, for this incident. Because I don't think that, one, the facts reveal that at all, and even in her own statements, she doesn't make that as a fact of itself. And so that I just want to clarify that, and I know that the people have introduced the interview, so if the court, again, if there's a hang up, the court can listen to that and make that determination. But again, I'm just going off of her explanation of why she pitches. And the only thing necessarily had from Ms. McMillan is that it may be between 5 and 6, and she's just referencing the size of the knife. We don't have anything specific to the blade, which is really what the requirement is for count 2. We have no officer that identified that they collected it. We have an officer that says, well, they should have collected it, or they did collect it, but he couldn't testify beyond that. He didn't testify who collected it, whether or not they had the knife, or even presented a photo of this being the knife in some sort of reference to what length we're dealing with. And so with count 2, I think that they're lacking on that. I think we have some testimony there, but we don't have the specifics that we need, even at a probable cause standard, to identify that for that particular count. So in regards to my objection, Your Honor, again, I leave it to what I've already said about count 1, and then with count 2 specifically, I think they lacked on that proof. So I would ask for a dismissal on both, but more specifically on count 2.
Thank you.
What I thought was interesting in defense's argument, if I'm being honest, was the Freudian slip at the beginning, where he stated the prosecution objects instead of saying defense objects. It was adorable. That being said, I think that the defense attorneys, as far as their argument was concerned, did what they could. The blade of the knife wasn't proven to be X number of inches, blah, blah, blah. I mean, they did what they could. It is what it is. There's a full confession. It's videotaped, and that's just what they have to deal with. Like, they have to go with the facts as presented by their own client. So they can't say now that she didn't do it because she already admitted that she did it, right? So, I mean, they did what they could. After hearing arguments from both sides, the court stated that it needed some time to collect its thoughts and stepped off the bench, gathered its notes, and then returned to issue its ruling.
So for the reasons stated on the record, the court does find that the prosecution has met their burden as to both counts. There is sufficient evidence as to each element of the offenses charged. I therefore am binding defendant over to circuit court for further proceedings as charged. Do we know who the arraigning judge is in this matter?
Judge Masseroni, Judge.
That's correct.
Judge Masseroni hears his arraignment on the information on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. for in custody.
It'll be December 2nd, Judge. I'm sorry.
You pick December 2nd. Be December 2nd at 9 a.m.
After taking the time to collect its thoughts, the court advised that there was enough probable cause as to the charges against Afeni Badu Mohammed and bound the matter up to district court. As you heard, the next court date here is December 22nd, 2025, and it's set for an arraignment. I don't know if we're going to talk about the arraignment itself, because there shouldn't really be too much exciting things happening in that arraignment. But in essence, the arraignment is just the date where Afeni's going to be advised of the charges against her. That's really it. Miss Badu Mohammed, you've been charged with this and this. Here are the elements. Here's what it is. Do you understand? That's really what it is. So there's not much need for us to talk about it. And you guys, something so interesting happened during Afeni's preliminary hearing. One of Jennifer's children is stated to have entered the courthouse with a knife.
Thank you for joining us at noon. I'm Priya Mann. Things got heated in court today. An altercation brings the hearing for Afeni Mohammed to a standstill. She's the woman accused of stabbing her McDonald's manager to death. That courtroom is now closed off. Lauren Kostick is following today's proceedings. Lauren, what can you tell us?
Well, Priya, we knew this was going to be a contentious hearing. Before it even started, the judge said there was a fight between a family of the victim, with some of them being escorted out. And then just a little bit ago, we watched as this video of the incident was being shown, a very graphic video. And we are told one of the family members, they went out and they retrieved 2 knives and then attempted to bring them back into the courtroom. And because of all this, like you said, the public is now banned from attending this hearing. Just the media is allowed inside.
But that is it for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what you think. Do you feel like the court made a proper decision? Remember the standard that I just taught you as far as preliminary hearings are concerned. And just tell me everything you want to let me know down below. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Until next time, y'all take care.